Hi everyone, welcome back to RB Insights. I'm Dr. Ruby. Today we are talking about an important and slightly big topic from the UGC NET syllabus: national values as enshrined in the Indian Constitution and what they mean for education. This is crucial for exams, yes, but even more important for us as future teachers and education thinkers. These values are the moral compass of our education system. They tell us why we teach, who education should serve, and how school should be run. Before we begin, a quick note: if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit subscribe and bell icon so you don't miss our series. Also, like and share this video with fellow aspirants. Now, let's start. First, a short introduction to the Constitution, and then we will unpack each value: socialism, secularism, justice, liberty, democracy, equality, and freedom, with special reference to education. Now, you can think of the Constitution as the nation's organizing story. It sets out what India believes in and what it wants to build. The preamble, the short paragraph we learn by heart, is the summary of the story. It declares India to be a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic and goes on to promise justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity to all citizens. Now, why are we mentioning about this? Because education is not outside the Constitution. It is one of the primary instruments through which these constitutional promises are realized. If the Constitution says equality, then school must be a place where equality is practiced, not merely discussed. If it promises liberty, then education must nurture free thoughts. If it speaks of socialism and justice, then education must work to reduce inequality and provide fair chances. Now, let us look at each of these values one by one, starting with socialism. If we look from the constitutional sense in India, socialism means an emphasis on reducing extreme inequalities, ensuring the state plays a role in distributing resources fairly and promoting welfare for all, not one class over another. Now, if you link it to education according to your syllabus, its implication for education would be equitable access. Socialism in education means that schools, funds, scholarships, and support systems must be available to children irrespective of their family income. Public schooling, scholarships, midday meals, free textbooks, these are socialist measures in education practice. Next, state responsibility. Governments must fund and regulate education so that the poor are not just shut out by market forces. Think of government-run schools, subsidies and fee regulations. Next, curriculum and pedagogy. Curriculum should include social and economic literacy. Students must learn about inequality, workers' rights, welfare system. Pedagogy should foster empathy and sense of collective responsibility rather than cutthroat competition. Let me give you an example of socialism in relation to education. Suppose a school running a learning support program for first-generation learners or providing free remedial classes and career counseling to disadvantaged students. This is right here where socialist principles are put into action. Now, let us move on to the next constitutional value, secularism. Secularism in India means the state treats all religion equally. It does not have an official religion and it protects freedom of religion while promoting harmony. Now, how does it imply to education? Neutral curriculum. School must not promote a particular religion. Religious instruction cannot be mandatory in a way that privileges only one faith. Next point, respect for diversity. School culture should celebrate religious festivals of many communities and teach comparative religion with neutral, factual approach to foster mutual respect. Next point, moral education. Instead of doctrinal teaching, schools should teach ethical values common across religions like compassion, honesty, and service. An example of secularism in a school setting would be morning assemblies that include readings of moral messages from a range of religious and secular thinkers. History lessons that cover religious traditions objectively, and school policies that allow religious festival holidays for all communities. Now, coming to justice. The Constitution promises social justice, that is, ending caste and gender hierarchies, economic justice, which is reducing poverty, and political justice, which is fair participation in governance. Now, if we look the implication of justice for education, point number 1 would be affirmative measures. Reservation policies in educational institutions, scholarships for marginalized students, and special coaching initiatives are ways to pursue justice. Next, inclusive pedagogy. Teaching practices must be adapted so learners with different starting points can succeed. Remedial instruction, language support, culturally relevant pedagogy. Next point, access for differently able students. Justice also requires barrier-free schools, assistive technologies, and trained special educators so that differently able students get full educational opportunities. Next point, civic education. Political justice requires that schools teach rights and responsibilities, how public institutions work, and how to participate in democratic processes. Now, let me give you an example. A school that provides language bridging for children who speak a different mother tongue, or that runs weekend tuition for under-resourced students, is putting justice into practice. Now, moving on to the next constitutional value, liberty. Liberty in the Constitution refers to freedom of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship. This is the foundation of academic and intellectual freedom. If we look at its implication for education, the first point would be academic freedom. Universities and teachers should be free to explore ideas, question authority, and pursue research without undue censorship. Next point, encouraging critical thinking. Schools should teach students how to think, not what to think. Classrooms should be spaces for open debate, reasoned argument, and inquiry. Next point, safe expression. Students must be able to express opinions respectfully through classroom discussions, debates, school magazines, without fear of punishment for honest viewpoint differences. An example of liberty in an educational setting would be setting aside time each week for student debates on current issues, allowing students to propose projects, encouraging reflective writing where students express personal viewpoints backed by reason. Now, let us move on to the next constitutional value, democracy. India is a democratic republic. Democracy is not only periodic elections, but a way of living, participation, deliberation, and equality in decision making. Now, the implication of democracy for education would be democratic classrooms, where involve students in decisions, classroom rules, project topics, school committees. This builds skills of deliberation and collective responsibility. Next point, civics education. Curriculum must cover democratic institutions, rights, responsibilities, local governance, and ways citizens can engage. Next point, student governance. Student councils, mock parliaments, and school elections give hands-on experience of democratic processes. Next point, community linkages. School can partner with local panchayats, NGOs, and civic institutions so students see democracy in action. An example of democracy in an educational setting would be a school where the student council decides part of the budget for cultural events and present proposals to the staff. Students learn budgeting, consensus building, and accountability. Now, moving on to the next constitutional value, equality. Equality in the preamble and article means equality of status and opportunity, non-discrimination, and equal protection under the law. Now, the implication of equality for education would be universal access, which is free and compulsory education for all children. Policy measures like the right to education are direct expressions of equality. Next point, gender equity. Measures to increase girls' enrollment, retention, and safety at school, like separate toilet, girl-friendly policies. Next point, social inclusion. Programs for scheduled caste, tribes, minorities, migrant children, ensuring that social identity does not determine educational outcome. Next point, curricular equality. Textbooks and materials must avoid stereotyping. Diversity must be reflected in examples and stories. Now, an example of equality in relation to education would be a teacher who intentionally creates groupings so marginalized children get to lead activities, or who uses classroom stories that include diverse family types and cultures. Now, coming to freedom. When the Constitution speaks of freedom, it is not just about political freedom. It is also about the personal freedom of each citizen, the freedom to think, to choose, to speak, to believe, and to live with dignity. In the context of education, freedom means creating an environment where children can grow as independent thinkers and responsible human beings, not as passive followers. The implications of freedom for education would be freedom of learning style and pace. Now, every child is different. Some learn quickly, others need more time. True freedom in education means giving flexibility in pace, assignments, and assessment methods. Now, next point, freedom to question. A democratic classroom should allow students to ask why. When students question teachers, textbooks, or even policies respectfully, they are practicing the freedom of thought and expression. Next, freedom to explore interest. Education should not force all children into one mold. Some may love science, some may love arts, some may prefer vocational skills. So, freedom means school provide space for this diversity. Next, freedom from fear and coercion. No corporal punishment, no shaming, no discrimination. A fearful child cannot be a free learner. Freedom in education is also about safety and emotional security. An example of freedom in education would be allowing students to pick their project, topics, and the medium. Like role play, it could be documentary or article, encouraging creative autonomy. All these constitutional values which we have discussed, socialism, secularism, justice, liberty, democracy, equality, and freedom, are not abstract legal words. They are instructions for how we should teach. A school that truly honors the Constitution will not only teach children how to read and write, but will also train them to live as citizens who value fairness, dignity, and participation. If you find this video helpful, please like it and subscribe. Share the video with friends preparing for NET JRF. These connections between values and practice are exactly the kind of answers examiners look for. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next class.